if I said I wanted to burn it all down, Winter smiled. Then I'd say, finally. City of Shadows. Chapter 5. The water beneath the city. The Laurent Waterworks facility stood like a fossil of the old city. Gray stone, oxidized pipes, and thick steel doors that hadn't opened for civilians in nearly 20 years. Once the heart of the city's clean water supply, it had been quietly decommissioned after a series of mysterious financial restructurings. But Victor knew better. This place wasn't abandoned. It had evolved, just like everything Winter touched. The meeting was set for 11 p.m. under the cover of a fabricated maintenance operation. On paper, the facility was under inspection by a private environmental agency. In reality, the guards stationed outside weren't scientists. They were mercenaries dressed in reflective vests, carrying silenced weapons under their clipboards. Victor arrived alone. No Montello backup, no signals, no tracking, just silence, and a wire-thin recorder sewn into the seam of his collar. He entered through the northeast gate, bypassing the cameras with a homemade signal jammer. The corridors were dim, lit by flickering emergency strips. Water still rushed beneath the metal grates, echoing up from the drainage tunnels like the heartbeat of the forgotten city. Victor followed the sound. The chamber. He found the meeting chamber at the lowest level of the facility, a circular room of concrete and rusted iron, once used to oversee the flow of mainline filtration. Now it looked like a council chamber in a regime that hadn't revealed itself yet. One table, 2 chairs, and Winter already seated. Victor paused in the doorway. The figure in the chair was still, poised. The kind of stillness that didn't come from calm, but from complete control. He stepped in. Winter didn't stand. He gestured to the chair opposite him. Victor didn't sit. Peregrine's not coming, Victor said flatly. Winter's eyes, pale, like sea glass stripped of color, didn't flinch. I know. Victor circled slowly, taking in the room. This whole meeting was for me. Of course. Why? Now Winter smiled, the slow, unsettling curve of someone who'd already won 3 moves ahead. Because you don't know what side you're on yet. A conversation with the devil. Victor leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You're dismantling the city piece by piece. Why bother talking? Winter's voice was calm, precise. Because burning a city isn't the goal, Victor. Rewriting it is. Through blood and threats. Through design. He tapped the table. You think I'm building an empire. I'm not. I'm building a pattern. Spoken like a man trying to justify a body count. Winter's smile faded. You think the Montellos are cleaner. The Escarzas. The senators on payroll. Number. The difference is, I'm not pretending this city can be saved. I'm making something better from its remains. Victor took a step forward. You sent someone after my sister. Winter didn't blink. I needed to see if you'd move. Victor's fist clenched. You move fast when threatened, Winter continued, eyes fixed on him. But that's not leadership. That's instinct. I want to see what you do when you're given power. Victor laughed once, sharp, humorless. You think I want to join you? Winter leaned back. I think, deep down, you know I'm not your enemy. The Montellos left you in the dirt for years. Your loyalty, purchased with guilt, not respect. You want me to betray them? No, Winter said. I want you to choose. Loyalty or evolution. A pause. Then he slid a data drive across the table. This is everything I have on Alberto Montello. The deals, the kills, the secrets you were never told. Victor didn't touch it. You walk out of here, Winter said. You're still useful. You come back, you're dangerous. Back in the light. Victor left the waterworks without a word, The streets of Laurent felt quieter as he emerged, but not in peace, in anticipation. His comms lit up the moment he crossed into neutral zone territory. A Montello contact. "Where the hell have you been?" Victor didn't answer. Instead, he pulled into a parking structure, stared at the USB drive still in his hand. He didn't trust Winter, but he needed to know. He inserted it into an encrypted laptop, isolating the signal. Files opened like bleeding wounds. Bank transactions, offshore ledgers, signed death orders with Alberto Montello's fingerprint. A child taken, a senator bought, and a name Victor recognized as one of his own friends, quietly disappeared after asking too many questions. Victor sat back in silence, not because he didn't believe it, but because he already had. Somewhere inside, he'd always known. The dawn in the garden. The next day, Victor stood once again in Don Alberto's garden. The roses were blooming late, blood red against gray skies. The dawn turned slowly. "You went to the meeting." Victor nodded once, and he didn't answer with words. He pulled the data drive from his coat and placed it on the stone table. Alberto stared at it. Then, finally, "You opened it?" "Yes." The Don's shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but in acceptance. "I suppose that makes us honest now." Victor's voice was low. "Why did you keep it from me?" Alberto turned away, kneeling to tend a dying rose. "Because the truth is a virus, Victor. It spreads, and not everyone survives it." Victor stepped forward. "And what do you want now?" The Don stood slowly. "What I've always wanted. Not peace, not legacy, just time. And you've just told me mine's up. The line is drawn." That night, Victor stood between two phones. One line would call Montello's command, the other, Winter's encrypted contact. He stared at them both. Outside, Laurent was starting to burn. Small fires, sirens, factions collapsing. And somewhere beneath it all, the city whispered a question that only Victor could answer. Not who would win, but who would be left. Chapter 6. The Fault Line. The phone rang only once, not the line to Montello, the other one. Victor didn't speak. He didn't need to. The voice on the other end was calm, mechanical. He knows now? Victor didn't confirm it. Silence was confirmation. "Then it begins," the voice said, and the line went dead. Collapse protocol. Within the hour, things started to break, not with bombs, not with bullets, with absence. A warehouse in District 4 failed to open. 50 armed guards gone. No sign of struggle. Just abandoned uniforms and scattered communications gear. An offshore bank in Zurich received a withdrawal request for 90 million euros from an account that hadn't moved in 6 years. The funds were traced back to Montello's offshore shell companies. Within minutes, the bank froze every account linked to the organization. The Don's financial heart had been stopped. By morning, 2 lieutenants had defected. Not loudly, but with cold, organized precision, shifting their loyalty to no one, simply disappearing from one side of the board. And Winter? Winter didn't speak, didn't celebrate, didn't declare. Because war wasn't about shouting, it was about letting silence do the damage. Victor, the traitor, he didn't return to Montello's estate. He didn't have to. The Don already knew. Victor found his safe house compromised, the alarm system blinking red, motion-triggered cameras turned inward, as if someone had stood and watched the walls instead of what lay outside. A warning, or a final goodbye. He moved quickly. New alias, new passport. No contact with Sophia, no messages. In the mirror, he saw a man unrecognizable, not from the clothes or the beard now forming along his jaw, but in his eyes, because something in him had shifted. He was no longer fighting to protect. Now he was fighting to reveal. Meanwhile, in the underground, in a concrete tunnel beneath Dock 7, a meeting took place between three men who hadn't spoken in years. Two were former cartel financiers. One was a senior intelligence operative, supposedly retired. They sat across from a flickering monitor. On the screen, a list of active Montello infrastructure points, shipment depots, hidden cash reserves, bribed officials, courtroom clerks, even assassins listed as consultants. The intel came from Victor. Winter had made his point. He didn't just want to destroy the Montello family. He wanted to take their blueprint and replace it with his own. And now, he had a man on the inside, the man who'd once carried their secrets. Sophia's silence. 3 days passed before Victor reached out to Sophia. An untraceable message, one line. "You're off the board. Stay off." No reply, but she read it, and that was all he needed. Blood on marble, Don Alberto Montello wasn't hiding. He stood in the center of the old opera house, his private command post, surrounded by the last men still loyal to him. 30 soldiers, 3 capos, 2 trusted judges. "He knows our codes," one said. "He's feeding them to Winter." Alberto's face was still. "He's not feeding them." His voice was colder than stone. "He is Winter's weapon now." A pause. "Then we need to kill him." Alberto raised his hand. "Number, not yet. Not until I understand why he chose the knife over the crown." "It doesn't matter why. It matters to me," the Don said. "And then, find him. Don't touch him. Not until I say." But by then, Victor was already gone. The fall of a judge. The first public casualty came that evening. Judge Irene Calvo, long rumored to be Montello's shield in the courts, was found dead in her villa. No sign of entry, no alarm triggered. Only a card left on her chest, tucked under her folded hands. A white feather, Victor's new calling card, or Winter's. It no longer mattered. Because now, the city knew, the silent war had become visible, and no one was untouchable. Messages in the smoke. Every faction moved at once. The Escarza family reinforced their southern border, locking down docks and arming every transport vehicle. The Anatolovich syndicate began rotating locations every 12 hours. Safe houses were cleared, guards tripled. And yet, they weren't defending against Montello. They were defending against Victor. His name was no longer whispered. It was invoked. Not as a man, as a force. One that knew where you slept, who you trusted, what back door you'd forgotten to seal. Winter's offer, Part 2. The next message wasn't a threat. It was an invitation, a location, the old planetarium, now a shell of cracked domes and shattered glass. Victor arrived alone. Winter was already there, standing beneath the collapsed replica of Orion. "Your war just made you a god," he said. Victor didn't reply. "Montello will try to paint you as a traitor," Winter continued. "But you and I both know, you didn't betray anyone. You just finally told the truth." Victor stared up at the glass stars. "This isn't about Montello anymore." "No," Winter said. "It's about what comes next, about what replaces the old gods." A pause. Then Victor asked quietly, "And if I said I wanted to burn it all down?" Winter smiled. "Then I'd say, finally."